First of all, Olga, I just wanted to ask you maybe, how do you recall the first days, maybe first 2 weeks of this war? Because on one hand, we all know what was going on in terms of stress, difficulties of the situation, but at the same time, Kyiv Independent was just rapidly growing. So I'm just curious, how did you manage this?
Well, the first closer,
you
right?
You can move it.
You can move?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Or I can just like,
Yeah,
it's a very intense looking construction.
Okay.
I'm like, very, yeah. Well, the first weeks were all sort of a blur, and now when I recall it, I can't believe so many things happened in such a short period of time, really. When the invasion started, we were, we were just 3 months old, first of all. The Kyiv Independent was founded 1 year ago. We didn't have a major plan or resources to relocate the whole team somewhere to Western Ukraine, just in case. So when it started, most of us were actually in Kyiv, and we witnessed the start of it all. And what happened then was, as people from the team were, some of them relocating to other parts of Ukraine or taking their families abroad if they had children, there was a lot of movement. But we continued to work. There was always somebody doing the news. The website was updated 24/7. The social media was updated 24/7. And suddenly, as we were just doing that as an instinct, like it's not like we had a big discussion. Okay, let's continue to work. No, we just did it. It was just an instinct that just took over. And suddenly, probably a couple of days into it, we start noticing something strange happening. We start noticing that our Twitter numbers are through the roof. Just to give you the idea, a couple of days before the invasion, we hit 30,000 people on Twitter, and we were really happy about that. We made a little visual celebrating that, and everything. And several days, I think a week into the invasion, we were 1 million.
Yeah.
And now we are 2 million, and that's where we kind of.
How does it feel? I'm sorry, as a guy.
That was so surreal, because it was kind of happening in the background to everything. Because you're in Ukraine, you're trying to wrap your mind around the fact that your country is being invaded and may be destroyed, and your city may fall, and people may be killed. And at the same time, this whole thing is happening. Like, the numbers on the website are growing. The crowdfunding campaign is growing insanely. We get insane coverage and mentions, and that people ask me about all the time still. Like, apparently Barack Obama's foundation recommended us. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's foundation tweeted something about us. And this is happening. And what it looks like from the inside is we have the Slack channel where we coordinate everything we do. And from time to time, somebody sends a screenshot saying, "Did you see our crowdfunding campaign numbers?" And we're like, wow, that doesn't seem right. That's a lot. Okay, moving on. So that's really what it was like. We couldn't comprehend it.
Was there a moment where it actually hit you?
I think early April. Early April was when people, including me, started returning to Kyiv from other parts of Ukraine where they evacuated, because that was the time when Russian troops moved away from Kyiv, and it became clear that Kyiv is not, at least not in immediate danger of being seized. I think it was at that moment where we're sort of trying to return to normal and review and we found ourselves in we realized we were in a different position. We realized that there are all these stories being written about us, all these people wanting to interview us on the ground. Time magazine reaching out, asking about the cover story. And we realized that the responsibility is huge on us. But I can't say, because we from the beginning, we thought of ourselves and our mission in a very committed way. We felt the responsibility always. So that's why I can't say that there was like one moment when something changed for us.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on this panel, because Kyiv Independent, and we have more people actually from Kyiv Independent here.
Yeah, several. I don't know,
half of the room, no. But
I don't see the room at all, so I can't point them out.
Yeah.
But they're here.
I just imagine there's like 300 people there. No. So, but, and I was talking to Paweł today before this, and we were also talking, you know, that this is rare, that during a conflict that there is an outlet, whether it's, you know, which covers it in English to such a big audience, which in your case is like non-Ukrainian, let's say. You know, there's so many people for whom you are the main source of information about what is currently going on with this war. How are you, like, how does it influence your editorial choices?
Well, I mentioned the increased feeling of responsibility. I think I also should mention that we are also the primary source for many foreign journalists who are reporting in Ukraine and reporting on Ukraine from abroad. And we get a lot of you know, good words from them about how useful we are in their work and so on. I mean, I don't really think that we would have been doing something very differently in terms of editorial choices if we were writing just for the Ukraine audience. The principles are the same, the core values are the same. Probably there are some things that when we're writing for the foreign audience, we need to explain a little bit better something about the context that we realize our readers don't necessarily know about Ukraine. But you know, the values and the principles and the standards don't change.
Okay, great. Now we're going to take a pause here and switch to Paweł for a second. So, Paweł, have you ever seen such an outlet as Kyiv Independent being born when, because you were, first of all, 2013, 2014, then just not chronologically, but Syria, Afghanistan, Karabakh, something else?
And Iraq a bit, yeah.
Iraq a bit, yeah.
Well, no, I don't think so, actually. I mean, there was... because you never saw like such independent media like on such a scale. In Syria there was like more activist groups who are doing like content in English, and to some scale it was happening in Armenia, but it was before already that you have some media outlet in English, but it never, because of the scale of the conflict itself, it wasn't as well as such a scale of the media, because that was what brought a lot of attention to everyone covering Ukraine, and especially when you have like a media which is covering everything, so of course it's bringing a lot of attention of the world. So no, not on such a scale.
Okay, so you have been to, as I just mentioned, a couple countries different, which are, well, basically not Western. So how would you compare your on-the-ground experience?
Wow, that's a lot, because every of these places is totally different, and
you have 12 minutes. So.
Yeah. Well, and you have, like, if you compare war in 2022 and 2014 in Ukraine, it's totally different. So you know, you have like here you have two regular armies. In Syria you have like a lot of militias. In Iraq you have as well usually a lot of militias. In Afghanistan you have somehow regular army and the militias. In Nagorno-Karabakh, which was again a specific territory, but you have again two regular armies, but not so modernized as in Ukraine. So you have everything is different. Like, you know, you have no, like in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, you have like a suicide bombings and stuff. So in Nagorno-Karabakh, you have like such a big advantage of Azerbaijan army, because they have Bayraktars at the moment, and the Armenian army was totally unprepared for that, so they got lost. So again, for working as a journalist, it's giving you totally different context, totally different threats, and it's difficult to answer that in such a scale, because, you know, every place is totally different.
Which one was the most dangerous for you to operate in?
Well, I think Ukraine is the most dangerous at the moment, because it's the most chaotic shelling. The biggest number of the attacks, of the rocket attacks, and basically you don't have like such a safe space to be. I think like like the biggest fear when me as a journalist, I was afraid, because usually I'm afraid when I feel uncertain. I don't know what will happen. So that was Syria probably when I was in a besiege of Afrin, and I have totally no you remember that I have no connection at the time. I don't know what is happening. For the long time when I was internet, I understood what is going on. Mostly from the live UA map, which was totally weird that you are in the place in the middle of the events and you know as much as people who are sitting like 1,000 kilometers away. But that was situation on the ground. And in Ukraine, like the first days was super chaotic, but I feel much more confident about my work because I again understand the better context. I speak the languages and stuff. But it's totally different. Everything like, you know, but I think Ukraine in 2022, it was the most difficult experience. Even if I survive, I would say more terrible things in other places. So if you look at the general from being a journalist in Ukraine in 2022, it's more dangerous than the places I was.
Especially when it comes to the places you go to, because, you know, it's also, you go to very close to the actual shelling or inside the cities which are currently being shelled. How do you find the maybe I'm not sure if this is a right word, but dealing with Ukrainian army when it comes to providing access or, you know, just cooperation?
Well, that's actually quite recently, that was a lot of story because of Kherson region and especially Kherson city, where Ukrainian army was super limiting and it wasn't, you don't have like sometimes clear procedures which to follow, and you just need to be lucky or need to know someone. So in that case, it's good to have, for example, Polish passport because it's sometimes opening you in such a cases. Of course, if you will work like in 2014, I work on the other side as well. The Polish passport was rather disadvantage than advantage, and so in that sense, it's tricky that you don't have like a clear procedures, and if someone like you or find a way, you can get in, and other people cannot, and it really doesn't make sense. But
can I stop you here, because maybe we have some participants here who don't know exactly because you said what happened in Kherson, so. There were some media or individual journalists who basically lost the accreditation.
Like one here, at least.
You also lost? They took your accreditation? Oh.
But they gave back.
Yeah. Okay, so... And I know that there are at least, maybe some people here were going quite outspoken that there is like some need to basically structure this process of getting accreditations to be more transparent, so we know what's going on. Did you have any? Your journalists have any issues with this?
We were not in that first batch of journalists who went into Kherson right after the liberation, but that was just a kind of a logistics issue. So if I had an opportunity, I would have sent somebody. I think they were totally wrong to try to ban access because. We can guess what the reasons were, but those first raw emotions of people in Kherson who were, liberated after 8 months of occupation, and they go to this first celebration, the first rally there. Can you imagine not seeing that? Can you imagine not showing this to the world? So I think all the journalists who went there on that first day without being allowed, I think they were totally right to do that.
So, and again, about the unclear procedures, like, including me, I can mention 4 journalists. 2 of them lost accreditations, 2 of them didn't. So it really doesn't make sense. We were at the same place at the same time, in the same square.
I saw Pawel, but they took my accreditation.
And they took my other friend I went with, but not mine. And the guy from the Washington Post I met, he didn't lose accreditation neither. So it even has less sense.
Maybe they were like,
yeah, maybe. So, we are just dropping the names like a press card and this one. And so yeah, that's really unfair in the sense that you really don't know what to follow and even who to ask and what to do, because when you call press officer, they're basically telling you, no, you cannot go. Oh, we'll tell you later, or do something. So, of course, journalists are trying to avoid that. And I personally will be happy to even lose this accreditation to be there at the time, because the Kherson was at this moment. This was a really short time when you can see like such a unique atmosphere, which was impossible to see later. Like, you know, it's disappearing. People are not like cheering on the street and dancing, making parties for the weeks. They are doing that for a really short time, and to get there and to see that, it's super important to even to report later on that city, to understand how it was, because, you know, it's never what you see on the social media. You need to see that on your own and talk with the people and see the stuff. So yeah, it was super important to be there. So I totally don't understand. So such cases were quite often. This one was probably the worst, but there were many cases like that when the access was randomly limited. And only. Oh yeah, Izium was quite similar as well. That people, I mean, but Kherson was the probably the biggest case that really a lot of even Ukrainian journalists started being angry about that. So it wasn't only about the international media. So yeah, super annoying and super. You really cannot understand what to do and how to avoid and how to be okay with that.
Yeah, just again, I'm just going to add a little context for those who don't know. When we say accreditation, it's a special accreditation which is issued by the Ministry of Defense. And simply you email them. And
where it's written in the end that no one is taking responsibility for your health and life and other things. And after that, everyone is telling you on the checkpoint, hey, sorry, it's dangerous for you.
No, I mean, yeah, definitely at least a deadline here would be helpful, because when it comes to us, we actually requested some accreditations 2 months ago, managed to go to Ukraine, do everything and come back, and still waiting for them. But yeah, so the one thing which they technically give you is, for example, the ability to travel outside of the curfew times.
Theoretically.
Theoretically. I mean. So yeah, how do you find talking to different representatives of Ukrainian government right now when it comes to setting up interviews, getting access?
Not always easy. Always very case by case. A lot of people that I talk to who are abroad, who know of the Kyiv Independent, they kind of assume that because we are so we have such a big audience abroad, we must have easy access to the government or even to Mr. Zelensky. I get emails saying, like, you know, can you please pass this information to Mr. Zelensky? Like, no. And in reality, that's not the case at all. Like, for us personally, I don't think that the Ukrainian government really acknowledges how, I don't want to sound bad, but like how important we are for the international audience to understand Ukraine. I think we're kind of almost off the radar for them, like somewhere on the periphery. And understandably so, because really the government and Zelensky's administration really focus now on talking to big foreign media, big, you know, CNN, maybe The Guardian, maybe Time magazine, big TV channels, because that's, you know, that fits into their strategy of creating a certain image for Ukraine to make sure that weapons keep coming in, aid keeps coming in, and the support continues for Ukraine. So, and it's not what I'm trying to say. Other Ukrainian media also have very little access to the administration or the government because we are not a priority at the moment, which is, I guess, which is a shame because the president has been interviewed by Ukrainian media, I don't know, a couple times since the war started, since the full-scale war started. I mean, not even as a journalist, but as a citizen, I would like to see him give an interview to a Ukrainian media outlet, because I think questions could be, or like a real press conference, because I think it
sometimes
could be
sometimes there are those mass interviews. It happened maybe
mass
a couple
interviews
times.
with several TV channel hosts, like who are all part of the the one TV
and there was
marathon.
one for Polish media, I think. Yeah, there was like maybe 8 or 10.
Oh yeah, but it was like a group interview.
Yeah, that's why mass interview. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah, those are mostly for foreign journalists. I think it happened twice in my memory for Ukrainian journalists in this year. Yes, so there is not much of an access.
What do you think about such approach?
Well, the whole conversation about media, about access, about freedom of speech in Ukraine during the war is a very big one. It's a very multi-dimensional one. There are many concerns now in Ukraine that the war can lead to some limitations of freedom of speech. One of such limitations, an indirect one, can be that basically people in power don't think they should even talk to the media in Ukraine anymore.
That's a very global approach of politicians.
Yeah,
but
but it's easy in the time like that. It is easy to try to justify that with the war that is happening, and we of course are seeing, as you probably know, we're seeing some wartime martial law limitations that, in theory, regulate what we can and can't write about, and they are not really. They're either not applied or applied very unequally, because I was for one story that we're going to publish today, I was reading very carefully all the rules that are in place for what information you can't reveal, and as I was reading it, I was thinking, like, I've read dozens of stories in Ukrainian and international media in the past, just past weeks that violate all of these rules, but they were not, nobody was put in prison for that or something. So it's a very kind of murky situation, and there's a lot of risks. I mean, personally, that's something I think about almost every day, because I think about self-censorship that we are experiencing. I mean, we Ukrainian journalists, some more, some less, but there's always a temptation to, you're always trying to find this balance between being a citizen of your country and being a reporter. And it's choices you make every day.
How do you deal that with some information which is not being provided? For example, the number of, or it's sometimes hinted but never was properly given, or it's not given updates. So on one hand, every day we get data provided by Ukrainians when it comes to dead Russian soldiers and lost equipment. Whereas when it comes to the losses from the Ukrainian side, that's very blurry. Although, Paweł, you were telling me that today Ursula von der Leyen, yes, she mentioned a number which is around 100,000, which is, so how do you deal with it? Injured and killed.
We get these little bits of information, like I think in the beginning of summer, Zelensky for the first time mentioned a number, and then Reznikov, the defense minister, mentioned another number a little later. So we report these bits, of course, but I think it's always about transparency and about making sure that your audience knows that when you report something that the government says, it's what the government of one of their sides of the war is saying in this moment. They might have their reasons to not give the right numbers. We do, like many media, we do every morning the update quoting the general staff of Ukraine with the number of Russian troops that were allegedly killed in action. I mean, do I think that it is in the conditions of the war? Do I think it is realistic that every day the general staff of Ukraine's armed forces has the accurate number, exactly like 230 Russian soldiers were killed the previous day? I mean, I don't think it's realistic that this number can be accurate. But we reported it saying that this is the estimation provided by the ground forces. And I was actually, you mentioned the losses of Ukrainian side. A couple of days ago, a French journalist asked me, a theoretical situation. If somebody leaked to me trustworthy real numbers of Ukrainian losses, how many Ukrainian military were really killed, and the question was, would I publish that if I got it? And this was incidentally, there was something that this was a theoretical situation that I asked myself about a couple of months ago, and that we discussed in the newsroom some time ago, just in a conversation to kind of make sure everybody's values are aligned in this moment. And the answer is yes, we would have published that, because I think people deserve to know this. And but I'm sure that just having conversations with some of my colleagues, I know that some Ukrainian journalists would feel right not to publish that, because they would think that they're hurting their country and its chances to win the war.
Yeah. Paweł, sorry, I'm just going to switch to you. You mentioned that there is, why was in 2014 a Polish passport a negative thing?
Well, when you worked on the self-proclaimed republic side, actually they were rather reluctant to Polish citizens, and like our joint colleague Piotr Andrusieczko, when he was checked by the one of the patrol, they look at his passport and said, "Oh, you have such a shitty passport. We need to stop you." And basically, they detained him for a while only because of the passport. So that was that was totally sometimes limiting an access to many places when you're working on the pro-Russian side or Russian side, and so in that sense it was annoying and difficult.
As a Polish person being there, how do you take this all emotionally, or do you have any emotional attachment to it? Because Syria, Afghanistan, they're far away, but Ukraine is a neighbor. We are just, many of us have been there just for holidays before everything and so on. How does this distance or lack of it in this particular case influences what you do?
Well, at the beginning it was especially difficult for me because after Warsaw, which is my hometown, definitely Kyiv is the second one I spend the most time in. And I was...
You lived there, or you wanted to move there?
I lived there for a while, yeah, twice or three times. And I was, first time I was in 2010 in Kyiv in my life. So, I was just feeling that I can lose a city which is important for me. So from this point of view, it was really difficult. And I remember the first days, and I was saying bye-bye to all the district, even these awful murals on the street, which next to the flat I was living in. I really hated that for years, and I went and I was looking. Oh no, this. But in general, I'm pretty good in the distancing myself. So I'm trying to make a moment, and that's advantage to be again a privilege to be a foreign journalist. Yeah, that I can leave to home, and that's okay, and I have place to live. That was again a big difference in 2014. We talked with Nastya a lot about that. That in 2014 you have a place where the war is going on and place where you can go back. And right now you don't have really super safe space. Of course you have safer regions, but you cannot be safe for 100%, and that's the biggest difference. So, and in general, I'm trying to find this hygiene between work and time when I'm going back. So, I'm really good in not following news and stuff. But again, I can do that because it's not my country where it's going on.
Thank you very much to you. Thank you very much to you both.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, of course, there is plenty of open things which we could follow, especially what you are saying or your different remarks. And I hope that those conversations will continue. So please treat all of the things we do here just as a thing which you can carry on later on during the discussions. For now, thank you very much. And one more time, thank you.